Good morning. Thank you for joining me this morning. I am Christina Hers, the Digital Asset Coordinator at Kew Gardens. This morning I'm going to share my experiences at Kew Gardens with finding the right dam solution. So I know this can be challenging and sometimes overwhelming, and it's even more difficult when you're trying to bring all of your stakeholders along with you along the way. So I'm going to tell you a story about how we went through this process at Kew. So we all want to keep our projects on the right path, right? So who's with me? Raise your hands if you're dam managers or looking for a new dam. Come on. There we go. Wow, lots of you. Good. So vendors, I hope you got a quick look of that. Look around. Those are your future customers and your future partners. So now raise your hands if you're a vendor. All right, lots of you, good. So dam managers, be nice to these people too. We're going to make them jump through lots of hoops during the selection process. So play nice and make friends. And here we go. So let me tell you briefly about Kew Gardens. We are the leading international authority on plants. We are also a public sector body, and we get some of our funding from DEFRA, from the government. We hold everything from the original works of Darwin to Victorian age glass houses, and we have over 1 billion seeds in our seed bank. We have a 250-year history. This is a map of Kew Gardens in 1837, and before this, the royal family used it as a summer getaway. So here's what Kew looks like now, and I hope that some of you have come to visit us already. So we have 2 visitor attractions, Kew Gardens and Wakehurst Place. But we have so much more than just pretty flowers. We have 2 million digital assets at the moment, and this takes up over 90 terabytes of volume. We have 800 employees at Kew Gardens, and all of them work very differently with different assets and in different locations. So let me give you a flavor of some of these assets. These are assets from our visitor attractions. We also have a school of horticulture and an events venue where weddings and music concerts take place. We have 2 art galleries and vast art collections, and we have a prestigious library with books dating all the way back to 1370. And what most people don't see, behind the scenes, we are a highly esteemed scientific research institute. We also have museums and content and marketing teams and an in-house publisher. And they're all pumping out assets at a very, very fast pace. So let's jump straight into planning and selecting the dam. So I should mention that at this point, we already had an existing dam product, but our intention was to evaluate the marketplace to find the best dam solution for Kew. So even before I got to Kew, my project manager, who's sitting right there, had been planning and getting buy-in and getting funding for our dam for several years. She had successfully identified stakeholders and arranged the project governance to include an active group of image creators. So we had a very active user group, but we also had a steering group that champions our dam throughout the organization. So our users created a list of 100 requirements for the dam. That's an awful lot, but they were very specific and very detailed. So for today's presentation, I'm going to assume that you've already gone through the needs analysis. And now you're at the point where you're doing market analysis. So I'm going to tell you how we went through the process of creating a shortlist, and then asking vendors to participate in demonstrations, all to get to a final decision and select a dam product by March of this year. So you can tell we already have a dam product now. So, as you know, it's a crazy dam world out there. There are lots and lots of dam vendors. There's no industry standard either, which makes it very confusing. There is no best dam product out there. So I've been told that if you choose very well, a good fit may accomplish maybe 80 to 90% of your requirements. So there will not be a product that can do everything you want. So take a minute to manage your expectations and just remember that as we go along. So as Teresa had shown us earlier, your best fit will probably, well, it should, meet your business requirements, or as many of them as possible, be a good fit as a partner, meet your technical requirements, and meet your budget. And the best fit would meet all 4 of these to the best of its ability. So these are the logos of just 67 of the DAM vendors out there. I hope everybody who's a vendor here, I can see their logo up there. But as you can see, when you see this, how do you go about picking a vendor, right? Do you just pick the one with the prettiest logo? Do you pick the one that you've heard of before? No, I mean, you don't want to do any of these things, right? You want this to be, there's to be a method to this. So here we were ready to evaluate the marketplace, but we had this sea of DAM vendors in front of us. So what do? Rather than spending months sifting through slick and professional vendor sales demos and reproducing work that's already ongoing by all the consultants in the industry, we decided to hire a consultant. So this is my first recommendation for you. Hire a consultant. I know this sounds like taking the easy way out, but I highly recommend this route. You need to get some unbiased advice from somebody. We hired Mark Davey from the DAM Foundation. He's back in the corner. But there are lots of other resources out there for you. If you're a consultant here, raise your hands. All right, so anybody need a consultant? They're all here. So take your pick. But do whatever it finds to get the help you need to assess the marketplace. And this is because it's actually really easy to be dazzled by a pretty system with a really slick user interface. And you don't want to be dazzled by that. You want the product that fits you the best. So ask the experts who will help you to find the right match. So we asked Mark Davey, who's our DAM consultant, and he loves being called that, doesn't he? He helped us to build a short list. So we gave him our requirements. We said we wanted a product that was highly functional, low cost, and easy to use that met almost all of our 100 requirements. Pretty easy, right? So what he did is he went and took this information, went away for a month, and came back to us with a short list. And what this looks like is something like this. So he evaluated our long list, our previous long list, and updated it based on lots of changes that have been going on in the DAM industry. So he looked at the latest versions of DAM products. So he created a list of 21 DAM products, which met our most critical high-level criteria. Then he analyzed the latest release of each DAM system to produce a ranking. So each of these is ranked according to how well they fit our criteria, and he gave us pros and cons for each of the vendors. Then, to create a short list, we took the top 4 vendors from the long list and added them to our short list. And then we did something funny. We added our current DAM vendor. So the reason we did this is because our stakeholders actually asked us to. They wanted to compare something that they already knew to the systems that they would see in the future. And this is a great idea because maybe the system you have already is the best system for you. And also, the stakeholders can see that they need to change. So as they see other systems, they understand, well, actually, maybe we need to change and innovate and look to the future and do something a little bit different. So let me ask all the DAM managers out there who just raised their hands previously and users to think about this. How did you choose the vendor you have now? Did you go and talk to them? Did you watch the sales demos and choose them that way? Did you have a structured method for choosing the DAM vendor? So first you have to choose the appropriate type of evaluation, right? So you want to put the vendors through a certain proof of concept exercise and have them be able to compare between different vendors. So here you have some options actually. At the very basic level, you can ask for an RFP. Now what you're going to get back are written responses, quite dry, but also very important. So we decided to skip this because our consultant had actually done this for us already. At the next level, you can ask for generic vendor demonstrations. These are great, but we didn't want to see a lot of sales demos. So we moved up to the next level, and we asked for customized scenario demonstrations. These are demonstrations that you ask the vendor to do with your assets and your workflows, and so you can see how they work in that product. Now, at the very top level, you can ask for a bake-off, and this is when the vendors come and set up a test system, and then you can pit them against each other in competitions. So when I started, I didn't actually know that we had all these options. And I didn't know, once I found out about these options, I didn't know if I had to do all of them, or maybe just some of them, but I knew my deadline was March. So what we decided is to just do one high-level evaluation. And this really saved us time and money, and it ended up getting us the right dam vendor in the end. So now on to the invitation. So you want to invite your vendors to the demonstrations. I created an invitation for the demonstrations. It doesn't look like your average government document, and that's because I really wanted our vendors to be excited about this. I wanted them to be introduced to us. This was the first time we were talking to them, and I wanted them to be really excited and think that this was like an invitation to a fancy pool party or something. So I should tell you also that we really wanted the vendors to like us because we were asking them to prepare for the demonstrations in only a month's time and over Christmas. So they were really understanding with us. So the invitation looks something like this, but there's a general who, what, where, when, and why of the process and what we were going to go through. There's a list of dates and deadlines, and we gave the vendor some rules. We said that one vendor would be presenting per day. They would get 90 minutes to demonstrate using our scenarios, which would be followed by a 30-minute question and answer period. So it was very limited and very structured, but this was a good way for us to put the vendors to a test. So next, I would say it's very important to know your critical technical requirements. Again, we'll go back to this diagram. So these are non-functional requirements that are almost more important than your business requirements. So there's lots and lots of great dam systems out there, but we cannot assume that all of them will be able to run on your PCs, your iPhones, or maybe you have an outdated version of Internet Explorer that you want it to run on. It's not going to happen. So not every dam provider is going to be flexible enough to work with your specific technical needs. So think about this, and if you're not quite sure about your technical needs, go back and talk to your IT department. You really need to get their help. So admittedly, this criteria might be good to use back in the long list creation because it's so important, but we used it here in the short list evaluation. So this was the technical part of the invitation. So there are 30 technical non-functional questions on here. And these are questions, so we expected the vendors to answer these in written format like they would an RFP. And that's simply because we didn't want our stakeholders sitting through really boring, long, dry, techie presentations. So we got these out of the way. And so, for example, one of our technical questions was if the dam product would run on Linux, PC, and Mac operating systems, which sounds very basic, but very, very important to establish. So let me talk quickly about scoring. Because these are such important criteria, we actually scored them as, we called them all mandatory, and we said that they would get a top score of 15 points. Of course, you can set up the scoring however you want, but this is really important part to the method and the process of evaluating vendors. So I'll get back to this in a couple minutes about scoring. So next, of course, you need to be an expert on your use cases. So over 30 of the questions were covered in the technical requirements, and that now the remaining of our 100 requirements were functional requirements. And each of these requirements has a specific use case attached to it. So we can write a story with them. And that's exactly what I did. So the last part of the invitation, what I consider the most important, is what you're asking the vendors to demo, and that's the scenarios. So I included 3 different scenarios, one for digitization, one for digital-born assets, and one for search and distribution. So each scenario started with a brief introduction, and then I jumped right into the narrative. So let's take an example. Let's say our scientists go out into the field, they're in the middle of the rainforest, they take a picture of this endangered orchid. Now, when they get back and put this image into the dam, and then they want to send this image out to some of their partners, we don't want the geotag location to go with this image, right? So there's information specific about where this orchid was seen. Now, if we give out this information, it's possible that someone might go out and poach that orchid and take it, and that's exactly what we want to avoid. So a requirement was to provide the ability to restrict access and visibility to specific metadata fields. And that related back to the narrative. So this is an important process to do because otherwise your requirements might be misinterpreted and you need to explain why that requirement is important to you. Now I also included wishlist items, so our could and should wishlist items, and I specified which ones those were. So now going on to scoring. For our functional requirements, must requirements were given a top score of 10, and our wish list items were given a top score of 5 and 1. So next, you need to make sure you consider the partner fit. But how do you go about doing this? How do you know if the partner is right for you? So we actually took the most obvious opportunity we could to get to know the vendors during the demonstrations. So we needed to find out in the course of just 3 hours if we could build a mutually beneficial partnership with each of these vendors. So this experience is what I imagine speed dating must be like. It was really intense. So ultimately, by the end of the demos, you should have a sense what it would be like to partner with a company. You should know if the vendors understand your business and the way that you work. You should know if the organization will be treated like an important customer. And you should know if your stakeholders have good chemistry with the vendor. Now, another thing you can do to get to know the vendor, and we'll go back to the relationship analogy, is that you know very little about the relationship at the beginning, right? So what do? You go out and talk to somebody else and see what they think about that person or about that company. And you get to know what it's like to be in a relationship with them. So I recommend that you ask for references. Your current customer is like a local expert who knows the benefits and challenges of the product. They know if they like using the dam. They know any issues they're having with it, and they know how long it took to implement it. So I asked the vendors to provide us with a reference client, someone who was local to the UK, who could tell us about their experience with the vendor and help us to understand if the vendor would be able to deal with our sorts of metadata and volumes of data. So the final way that you can get to know, or final way that we use to get to know our vendors was looking at their roadmap. So we checked that our future vision aligns with their future vision. It's very important. So in relationship terms, this is like you're about to have the talk with someone and say, okay, do we see eye to eye? Are we going the same place? Are we on the same page? So to do this, we ask each vendor for a product roadmap. Now, roadmaps should include innovative concepts and timelines for development. But let me warn you, don't get too excited about these roadmaps. Roadmaps simply show you that if the company continues to develop as they plan, then maybe somewhere down the road, they're going to do a really good job with your assets. But these are all promises. So let's be realistic when we look at the roadmap, right? Let's look at it and think, is the company promising too much? Why aren't certain features already integrated into the system? Is the product under development continuously? Will future developments cost me extra service fees? Is the company able to take our priorities into consideration? Ultimately, getting to know the vendor, talking to references, and seeing their product roadmap will help you to understand if this company will be a good partner fit for you. So my final advice to you is to take the product demos very seriously, because let me tell you, our stakeholders sure did. Our user group is especially dedicated, and they wanted to make sure they had a say in the final decision. Plus, they had put in so much effort over the past few years that they wanted to be there for this moment. We originally wanted to keep the demo small. I understand that usually when the vendors go to some place to demo, they have maybe 5 people watching. But our user group insisted that they score the vendors themselves. So we decided then that we would also invite the steering group to come along. So what this did is it actually involved everyone from the very beginning. We made sure that anyone who's interested was involved. So this meant we had 20+ people at our demos. But it created buy-in, right? So they got to see all the systems, and they knew that the one that they picked would be our final product. So at this point, you may be starting to understand what a big deal these vendor evaluations were at Kew. And a key part of our success was to have a team to run this event, and it had become an event at this point. So while I was working on writing the invitations, setting up demonstrations, and working out the scoring logistics, Davey, our consultant, was handling all the communications with the vendors, and he facilitated the on-site demos. And my project manager was coordinating more than 20 internal staff members who volunteered 3 hours of their time every day for a week for the demos. This is a picture of what our demos actually look like. And I have to say the most important thing during the demos is make sure you bring tea and biscuits, keep everybody interested. Now, in the end, after a full week of seeing demonstrations, calling references, reviewing the written responses, and tallying the final scores, we had finally made a final decision that fit all of our criteria. And we chose Itopia. The guys are right here. Now, of course, the real fun begins now that we're implementing the dam. So let me go back and review just quickly the lessons that I learned and that I wish somebody had told me before I started this process. So get expert help to create a shortlist during your market analysis. Evaluate your current dam against other dams. Choose the appropriate type of evaluation. Know your technical requirements, but also your use cases so you can write these scenarios. And consider the partner fit. And then remember to bring your stakeholders along on the whole dam journey. So thank you very much for coming. I want to say, here's my contact information. Please do contact me. As dam managers, I think we should all form a therapy group to talk about our challenges. So please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or you just want to have a moan. Thank you.